presenter is elected to introduce herself, just like Oliver, so I will turn the floor over to her.
Hello there. My name is Schotte. I'm a graduating video game production senior here at St. Edward's University. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about the power of interactive narrative and how stories shape our lives, and specifically how I use the power of interactive narrative to create a game that helped change my life. So I still remember the first time I ever asked my mother if I could wear pants to church. I don't know how your households are, but for us, in our households, skirts and dresses were required on Sunday mornings, basically. So I remember putting on these pants Sunday morning, standing there, staring at the door of my bedroom, knowing that when I stepped out, my mother would have something to say. And I was just standing there, running through all of these options in my head. Would it be outright judgment? Would she literally just tell me to turn around and go change? Or would it be a bit more subtle, simple, you're wearing that? There were so many possibilities and so many ways that things could go wrong, but I dared to hope. And I thought maybe today the pants would fly, and I opened the bedroom door, and when my mom saw me, she looks me up and down, sighs a little at the inevitability, I suppose, and says, well, if you're going to be wearing pants, then you better go put in some earrings. For the last 4 years, I've been studying how to tell good stories and how to make good games. Luckily, I have retained some of that information to share with you guys today. For instance, we can look at games as an experience constrained and created by a set of rules. This includes everything from Pokemon to Pong to water polo, tic-tac-toe to telltale games. Along with the rise of video game cultures, there's a fairly new medium that's born at the intersection of a gaming experience and a choose-your-own-adventure story. This intersection is a place called interactive fiction. These are stories that you play by reading through to a certain point where a choice is offered and then making a choice in order to progress the story forward and therefore the game. Basically, it's kind of an online choose-your-own-adventure novel, or if you've ever played a telltale game, it's like a novelization of that. Point is, I made one, and it took me a whole semester to do it, and I did it for a lot of different reasons. And one of those reasons is that human beings are the only species that build a running narrative of our lives as a tool for survival. The stories that we tell about our lives become our identities. Telling our stories has an impact on others, and the stories that we listen to in turn have an impact on our own identities. I wanted to create an interactive piece of my story and invite others into that piece of my identity to expand their perspectives on their own lives. I really decided to use Twine software to create this interactive narrative called A Deep Breath. And it took me quite a while to sort of process what I needed it to be. I really wanted to take a Brené Brown approach to getting vulnerable and genuine, and I set that as a challenge for myself at the beginning of this year. On January 1st, I promised myself that by my birthday, on February 28th, I would come out to my parents as queer. For me, being a queer person means being attracted to multiple genders. It is as much a part of who I am as my ability to love anyone at all. But at the time, I didn't have those words, and I didn't know how to tell my parents the truth. I mean, what do you say? My options were limitless and confusing. Should I tell them that I was queer? What kind of questions would they have about that? Should I tell them instead that I was bisexual or pansexual, or would that be just as confusing? Or maybe would it be easier for them to understand? And, well, there's another thing too. My father is a Lutheran pastor, and I already knew how he felt about the LGBTQ community. Hate the sin, not the sinner. So should I tell my mom first? Would he get in trouble with his congregation? Would I forever ruin the holiday season? As my birthday got closer and closer, I kept seeing all of these possibilities spiral through my mind over and over again. And I felt like I was no closer to deciding what to say or how to say it. I didn't know what story I wanted to tell. But I knew that once it was told, without a doubt, it would forever change the way these people looked at me. It was a lot of pressure. So why do human beings need stories so bad? Why have humans kept records of tales for almost as long as those humans have existed? Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, humans use narrative to frame their experiences. We use stories to imbue meaning into our lives. This theory, narrative theory, comes from Wagner, a friend of mine, just kidding, not a friend of mine, I'm just a big fan. He said that the narratives we create, discover, and apply help us maintain a sense of coherence and continuity over the course of our lives. Stories brought us together around campfires to share and connect with past generations. Stories were a tool for survival in the form of fables told to children in order to keep them safe. I knew I needed to tell my story because I felt like I was telling someone else's, like I couldn't experience my own life because it wasn't mine. You see, I have a mood disorder, and it causes me to experience these moments where I feel completely disconnected from my body and my identity. I can look at my face in the mirror and not recognize myself. I can look at my own hands and not see them as my own. And with that comes crippling bouts of anxiety that can leave my body literally physically frozen. To treat disorders like this one, many therapists utilize cognitive behavioral therapy to change thinking patterns and affect destructive behaviors. Specifically, I sort of sunk into exposure and response prevention therapy, which is a specific type of therapy. These techniques desensitize the person to their fears by repeatedly exposing a person in a safe and controlled environment. While I was writing on this work, A Deep Breath, I imagined again and again exactly how it might feel to come out to my family. I imagined easy acceptance and love. I imagined a screaming, knockdown, drag-out fight. I imagined utter and complete silence. The first few times I tried writing about those situations, it was the hardest thing I have ever had to do. I let myself imagine my mother's disappointed, tear-stained face. I imagined my father pointing to the door and telling me to get out. The fear and the sadness were completely overwhelming. Even opening up my laptop to work on A Deep Breath was nearly impossible. I could barely look at the screen. I hated every word that I had written because every time I read them, I was thrown violently back into this moment of imagined pain. Obviously, made completing my thesis a little bit difficult. Yet here I stand. So, it is a celebration today, folks. However, it also meant that I was forced to interact with these situations over and over and over again, and slowly, so incredibly slowly, the uncomfortable anxiety that I felt began to gradually fade away. I was faced constantly with this immersive reality of my greatest fears come to life, and every single time I interacted with them, I came out alive. I found that exploring these different narrative pathways, letting things go wrong, getting bad endings, they allowed me to feel confident enough to choose the braver or more difficult options. I let myself be the hero when I only ever imagined myself as the victim. So in order to give you a little bit of a taste of that, we are actually going to be playing a short little clip of my game. This clip features Otto. He's a captured rebel in a post-apocalyptic society where they punish dissenters by tossing them on trains and forcing them to play a game. So,
Do you want me to fly it, or do you want me to do it?
I would love that. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Sunset Line. The game is simple. If you can make it to the front of the train, you earn your freedom. All you have to do is progress from compartment to compartment without saying a word. Simple, right? Just stay silent, and you'll be rewarded with a safe and secure future. One last thing. If you break break your silence before reaching the front, you will be forcibly escorted from the train. Any questions? Great. So, in this scene, we see Otto enter a train compartment full of silent women. Before they know it, they begin to hear voices of these women, although they can't identify whose voice is speaking. They say things like, "Now, Otto, why'd you have to go, stern Otto? Otto, you've gone and gotten us all into trouble. You couldn't just keep your mouth shut. Otto, you don't understand how these things work. When you're older, you realize that none of this really mattered. Why couldn't you just keep quiet? Why couldn't you just keep quiet, Otto?" So, you come to the first of a few choices. Is there any requests? We'll go through all of them, they're pretty short, but does anyone want to see one in particular?
Stop it, please.
Okay, Otto can't take it anymore. Stop it, please. Why is this happening to me? The monitor from another cabin begins to power up and comes towards you. No, please, I wasn't even protesting. I was just escorting my friends. I wasn't even meant to be there. As the monitor approaches, Otto can see their display going red. The words "Game Over" blinking across its surface. The monitor grabs Otto by the scruff of the neck and tosses them out of the open panel and off the train. So yeah, that's the bad ending. Any other requests?
The second one.
Otto takes a breath and reminds themselves what is true. I am not without value. No one is without value. I must stay strong. I must be brave. This is unfair. This must change. This is not justice. And you get to move forward. Congratulations. Well done. Then there's one last one. It's pretty short. You keep your mouth shut, just long enough for the light above the door to turn green, and you also get to move forward. Congratulations. So this is just one of the many decisions featured in this game. I felt like that would be a good one to sort of illustrate my point about having to sit through that and go over and over and over again, and just sitting with those emotions and processing them. So this project had a profound impact on me. Like I said, it is the most difficult thing that I have ever had to do, but I learned a lot while doing it. Interactive stories allow us to try on identities. I told stories people would recognize so that they could feel the same fear and uncertainty that I felt making the choices. We all speak this universal language of narrative. We can understand each other's stories. I wanted to give others a chance to feel as brave as I did, as brave as I felt hearing the stories of others. So being able to play this game and actually choose the brave choices allows you that moment, because bravery is something that you have to practice. And the last thing I learned is that truth is more important than perfection. A couple of days before my birthday, I sat my mom down and I told her the truth. I'm bisexual. I always have been, I always am, and I always will be. And I got the exact outcome that I wanted. She heard me, and we started a conversation, and despite my fears, I knew that it would be okay. Thank you. So yeah, if you guys would like to see more of the game, it'll be at Game Fair today, this afternoon, right after this, from 2 to 6 in Moody. So come on out.
4 to 6.
4 to 6 in Moody. So come on out. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, Oliver.
So, Sunset Line, train, Snowpiercer.
Oh yeah, Snowpiercer was absolutely a bit of my inspiration for that. I knew I wanted to do sort of like this post-apocalyptic future sort of setting, and I wanted to do a gauntlet. So I decided that the way that I was going to do that was a train, so you would have to move train car by train car forward through the story. Any other questions? Yes.
Do all the different stories have different genres?
Yes, so there are 3 different sort of narrative lines in this story that you can play as Otto. This one, Otto is the post-apocalyptic rebel. In another, Otto is a starship captain. And in a third, Otto is a traveling bard. So those all sort of explore these different internal conflicts that I was having during this time in different ways. Yes?
I was wondering, you were just talking about your personal struggle about speaking, and then the section you shared with us, it was the speaking that gets you off the train, and I was just wondering about your choice for that.
Well, so in this instance, it's sort of to create the stakes of feeling like you are in a space where if you do speak up, if you speak as truly and loudly as you want to, you will be maybe not executed, but persecuted for your voice and what you choose to say. So it was a way for me to sort of narratively create that moment of this is a real game, these are the stakes. If you speak out, you're gonna get tossed off the train by a giant robot.
So interactive fiction, what are the reasons that it's super big? One of the things that makes it really unique is the fact that you have multiple choices. When you were kind of describing and transmuting your personal experience into this interactive fiction, what was the significance of having multiple different options to address kind of this character's journey?
So there were these three sort of different pathways, right, that I ended up taking. It was sort of a logical pathway, an ideal pathway, and my absolute worst fears come to life. So these three pathways and all of the choices in them are really about how all of this is a balance of those feelings. There is a reality, right, where like you can make logical choices and logically think about what might happen, what might occur if you do this way. But here's the thing, we never really know what's going to happen. So I think part of the importance of having those multiple choices is, again, we talked about immersion therapy, allowing yourself to fail over and over and over again, allowing yourself to hear what you absolutely never ever want to hear, imagining people responding to you in the worst ways that they could and realizing that, even if they do, you're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. So I think that having choices that don't necessarily have an ideal outcome allows you to sort of practice failure and again practice that bravery of deciding to make the choice anyway. Yes, Karen.
So I noticed in the one choice that you had, I was wondering when you have three choices, there's that accept, reject, deflect pattern for interactive fiction. One where you accept and go along with what is being done, one where you fight against it and try to get to do the opposite, and then of course the other one where you sort of try to go along but not with it. I noticed that pattern sort of was accept, deflect, reject on there. Did you consciously do that, or was that something that...
Oh yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. This piece went through a ton of different drafts, and it was actually really great being able to be in an interactive fiction class to be like, okay, this is a piece that I want to be in there, but the way it's working game-wise isn't exactly flowing as well as I would like it to. So while I'm learning these new things like the accept, reject, deflect, it helps me to structure it in a better way that makes more sense narratively. So in this case, the deflect option, right, is you are still remaining silent, but you're doing it from a place of internal strength and like moving forward. And there's a couple of other little nuggets of information that you actually get in that option that help you further on down the line. So you get little bits like that, yeah, where even though two options have the same result, the way you go about doing them renders the future a little bit differently. Yeah. So yes, I did think about that.
I think it's good, right? Because especially for when you have to like share your identity, right? There is definitely costs and benefits for each choice in your real life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And knowing when to do which.
Yeah, and that's another thing that it was really fun to play around with the genre fiction because I can take moments like that where everybody has had something where they have to tell someone and they don't know how the other person is going to react. So being able to take that sort of personal moment for me and turning it into something that is universal through genre fiction, through putting it into that sort of, accept, deflect, reject pattern that people can recognize, it becomes a universal experience. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm gonna ask a short version question, kind of. Were there points where you felt tension between the idea of this as literature and as a game? I mean, I was thinking a lot when we were talking about Offset. He has so many characters that make choices, and the outcome is seemingly unrelated to the choice that's made, but it seems like if you're making a game, there has to be, you maybe in some ways have less freedom because there has to be an internal logic. So how did you go about sort of figuring out in what ways can you play with this piece as literature, in what ways does the fact that it's a game maybe allow you more or possibly less freedom in the choices that the author gets to make?
Yeah, yes, that was a huge sort of navigating point for me, right, of making sure that these choices have to feel satisfactory, right? Like you said, there has to be an internal logic. So if you pick a choice and you get an unexpected result, as a player, you're disappointed and it's less fun. So it's really important as a game designer to be making sure that all these choices that players are making have outcomes that make sense given the information that you've given them so far. So that, honestly, the literature piece of it was actually manipulating the information that I gave them so that if they choose a choice for a certain reason, that doesn't have to be the reason that auto does it. So that's also one of the reasons I decided to do, like, instead of doing second person, using this third person character of auto, because I, as the author, can manipulate auto in a way that I, as the author, can't manipulate a you, right? People are going to choose whatever they choose for different reasons. But as long as I give a good reason why auto would have chosen it, then I think it can make sense narratively and in a game aspect. Yeah. Any questions? Oh yeah, of course. No more questions? All right, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure and an honor to be Hannah's honors advisor for this project because I was moved and humbled by the profound vulnerability. She name-checked Brene Brown, but also the strength because she empowered herself to be who she is. And one of the reasons I've been so delighted to be part of this Sing Out This community is that we're at the vanguard of a generation where thousands of young people are empowering themselves to make that choice. My father's generation, that wasn't possible. And going with Hannah in her journey that she put up on screen and processed both in the paper and in the IF, I kept thinking about my father not needing to be who he was his entire life. And so I'm just so humbled and excited to be part of this community that has so many young people who are making those choices, who have empowered themselves, who said, I am here, this is who I am, get used to me. And so